Tonight, amazing stories of heroism after a USAirways plane is forced to ditch into the Hudson River in New York City. Incredibly, everyone on board survived the crash landing. We'll tell you what happened. We'll tell you how that pilot, with his professionalism and courage, avoided a major disaster. All of that in the day's news straight ahead here tonight.
This is Lou Dobbs Tonight. News, debate, and opinion for Thursday, January 15th. Live from New York, Lou Dobbs.
Joining me now is Peter Goelz. He's the former managing director of the National Transportation Safety Board. The NTSB, of course, is the agency in charge of investigating the crash landing of USAirways Flight 1549. It is great to have you with us.
Thank you, Lou.
What is going to happen now in determining the cause of this crash landing?
Well, the safety board has got a team that's probably already arrived in New York City, headed up by a board member, one of the 5 presidentially appointed board members. It'll be a team of probably 15 or 20 investigators. The lead investigator, I know, he was a guy named Benson. He is an expert on these types of aircraft. They're going to take a close look at the flight data recorder, the voice recorder, and then they're going to take a look at those engines and see exactly what happened. And if the birds did strike them, what type and how many?
Now, a bird strike, as the pilot, Sullenberger, called in, both engines out. Is this rare? Let's first stipulate, if indeed it turns out that is the cause of the engine failure, is it not unusual to hit a flock of birds so large that it would affect both engines?
It is absolutely extraordinary. I can't remember when both engines went out like this. You know, bird strikes have been part of aviation since its earliest days. The first recorded one was by Orville and Wilbur Wright back in 1905. But to have both engines go out like this is just extraordinary. And
as this plane was piloted by the chief pilot, Sully Sullenberger, to bank that aircraft with one engine out, to bring it across the Hudson and direct it to south on the Hudson River, going over, apparently, as we're told now, by about 900 feet, the George Washington Bridge. Describe, if you will, your sense of what is required, of what the piloting of that aircraft must have been like, losing not one but then both engines and setting down on the water on the Hudson River.
Well, it's an extraordinary team effort between the pilot and the co-pilot. They have to assess what happened. They've got to make a series of split-second decisions. Should we go try to get back to LaGuardia? Should we try and land at Newark? What about Teterboro? They make a quick decision that they're not going to make it. And Captain Sullenberger really did an extraordinary job to put that plane down as gently as he could in the Hudson. Pilots, you train for all sorts of events. An engine out, occasionally both engine outs. One thing you don't train for is ditching an aircraft in the water, and that takes genuine skill.
There is absolutely no way one could rehearse or practice or prepare. These pilots go through flight safety, in which they do simulations of all sorts. But to give us some sense of the complexity of putting down an aircraft, an A320 is a huge aircraft.
It is a big one. But here's the issue: you want to get the plane going as slow as possible without stalling the plane. And you want to keep those engines, those big engines, underneath the wings. You want to keep them off the water to the last possible second, because once those engines hit the water, the plane's coming to a halt. And of course, that the passengers were able to get out is really testament in some ways to the way the planes are designed now. The seats held in place. They're mandated to withstand this kind of violent shock. And the passengers, they got to get out in 90 seconds. That's the rules. And boy, the flight attendants knew what they were doing.
Absolutely. Everyone aboard USAirways, as I was saying earlier, Peter, they have to be so proud of that flight crew and those pilots. The landing of this aircraft, the number of the passengers have commented, talking with Fred Beretta, Joshua Peltz, they both commented on the fact that the plane held together. They were somewhat, you could tell, not only relieved, but they were surprised that it did so. Are you?
Well, I think usually you expect the plane to come down violently, it's going to break apart. That this plane held together is really testament to the pilot's skill, that he was able to keep that nose up and keep those wings up to the last possible second. So I think it really is an extraordinary job of piloting.
Do you have any idea of how long it'll take? Your best guess, I realize it's only a guess at this point, how long it'll take for the National Traffic Safety Board to come up with an answer as to the cause of this crash?
Well, it takes them about a year to issue a report, but they're going to be issuing statements over the next 3 or 4 days, and I think you'll have a very clear picture pretty quickly exactly what happened, and we're going to get a real picture of exactly how great a job of piloting and the airmanship was shown by this crew.
Well, I know that you're, like all of us in this country, relieved, thrilled that these passengers were in the hands of such great pilots, and God, to get it through. It's very rare that we have a story that ends this happily when it comes to these sorts of events. Peter, we thank you very much for being with us. Peter Goelz, thank you.
Thank you.
Former Managing Director of the National Traffic Safety Board.